Money, 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 money. This is the root of all evil divorces. Welcome and welcome back to the channel. My name is Isabel, and in this video, I am going to be speaking to you recently engaged ladies. Congratulations on your engagement. I am so happy for you, and I just wanted to make a video specifically for you and the journey that you are on towards marriage. And also, if you ladies are not even there yet and you want engagement, you want marriage in your life, please stick around for this video. It's very informative and it's good for you to manifest and see what it is that you may need to talk about before you walk down the aisle as well. So stay tuned. Also, please like this video. That really helps out the channel and me, and also subscribe to the channel. And if you have any comments or if you have anything to add, feel free to write in the comments. And if you yourself want a marriage and want to be engaged and you are hitting a little bit of a roadblock in your dating and relationship, feel free to reach out to me for a one-on-one goddess check-in. My information is in the description. And if you're completely new to dating and want to learn about online dating and how to make the best out of it, I do have an online course for that, and that is also in the description. It is Feminine Way to Date Online, so please give that a try. So like I said, for the ladies who are engaged, these are things that you and your future husband need to discuss before you say I do. Now, the very first thing that I'm going to talk about, and this isn't in any particular order, so feel free to, go through these in any kind of order that you want to do, but I do think they are all equally important and something that you should be discussing with your partner. Also, these things you probably already have discussed, which, I mean, kudos to you for doing that. And if you haven't discussed it, then I do think it's very important that you do. Okay, the very first thing that you need to discuss with your partner before you walk down the aisle is money. Money, 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 money. This is the root of all evil divorces. It really is. A lot of, marriages end because of money, or is probably a huge part of it. So I think it's important that you have these discussions early on. The sooner the better. And a lot of the time, the lack of transparency is what breaks down a marriage. So you do need to have this conversation with your future husband, and he needs to, crack open the books and let you see what's actually going on, the assets, the liabilities, the, debt, all of these things you need to know about, just so you have a clear idea of your finances. You can't just take somebody's word for it, especially when it comes to money. It needs to be something that is transparent. And, you need to be transparent as well with what debt you have, what you're really coming into this marriage with. And so then that way, it's clear on both sides really that this is what you have, this is what you don't have, this is what you owe, this is what you don't owe, right? And most of the time, if you are engaged to a successful man who prides himself on what he's been able to build for himself, then he will have no problem cracking open the books for you. Most of the time, I find that these guys will do it without you even asking. I know with my husband, he just, even in the courting process, he just decided, hey, let's have a meeting with my financial advisor so you can see, all that's going on. And he really just asked me like, oh, how much debt do you have? And then, I didn't really have much debt. So the little debt that I had, I was like, oh, it's just like, I think at that time it was like, I don't know, like $5,000. I had like literally no debt. Probably even like $3,000. I didn't have any student loans. I didn't have any, debt on my car. Like I just didn't have any debt, just like a couple of credit card debt, but it was like really simple. He was like, oh, that's nothing, whatever. But like, he showed me, all of his assets, how much he had like the house, the cars, all of that stuff, and he just made it really clear and open for me, so I knew what I was going to gain in the marriage. And I thought that was like really great and very helpful, because honestly, I wouldn't want to go into a marriage without knowing these things, because I feel like that is such an important part, and women need to know this, because if you are going to marry a man, you want him to be a protector, a provider, you're going to need to know what he has going on in the bank. And I know this is sometimes an uncomfortable conversation, but I will tell you this: if the guy is successful and he has pride himself on the things that he has accomplished financially, he will have no problem showing you what is going on in the bank. That is number one. If he has something to hide, if he is a scammer, then he will have all the problems to show you what's going on in the bank. So be clear about that. Successful people, if they're serious about you, if they're going to marry you, they have no problem showing you how much money they have. If you feel embarrassed about your own finances, if you don't feel like, oh my God, I don't really have that much, like if he asks me, it's going to be like a mess, don't worry about that, because if he is financially successful, he is not going to worry about, you, right? Unless it's like, oh my God, she owes like $1 million, right? But if you're like, hey, I got some school loans and, maybe a couple credit cards, maybe I owe money on my car, maybe I have something like that, then maybe he will just be like, oh, okay, like what's the plan for that? But most of the time it's going to be fine. Like, don't worry about it. Men aren't coming into this marriage, especially the men that I advise you ladies to marry, aren't coming in with this idea like you need to provide for them. They're thinking they need to provide for you, and so that's more important. And they usually will just ask you, what debt do you have? They're not necessarily looking for like, oh, what assets do you have? How, what are we working with, right? They're not really looking at it in that way. They're like, okay, how much money do I have to pay to get her out of debt? So then we're good, right? That's usually the conversation. So don't need to be afraid if it's, afraid on your side, or if you make more money, right? Then I feel like, as long as you're like, hey, this is my debt, this is what I owe, whatever. And if it's like, hey, you have a lot of money, then you have a lot of money. It's not a big deal. And I think it's important for, him to be transparent, especially if you are going into this, wanting to be provided for, and you want to, be married to someone who allows you to be a housewife or a stay-at-home mom. So I think that is very, very important that you guys have that discussion early on before you actually walk down that aisle. So another big thing that you guys need to discuss is where you're going to live. This is something that you probably discussed during courting, but this probably, is still something that you need to discuss if you haven't. This is huge, because I know with me, I didn't move in with my husband into his home until we got married. Obviously we stayed with each other. I've been in his house before then, but I didn't officially move in until we got married. And that was just a good thing for me, because I wasn't coming into him like, with no place to stay. Like, I had my own home, I had my own space. So it was like pretty much like, hey, I'm good having my own stuff, and I will come in once we're married, and then we'll merge our lives together. And I did not own my home, so I was, fine to move into his home, because he obviously owned his home. And the neighborhood that he lived in, I lived probably 3 towns down from him. So we both live at the coast, so it's just like pretty much just like down the road, so about like 20 minutes away from one another. And I knew that he wanted to stay in this neighborhood, and I actually liked the neighborhood that he lived in. So I was perfectly good with like living there. But if you are dating someone and they live in a neighborhood that like you're not particularly fond of, or or you just don't really want to live there, then you need to discuss like, where you guys going to live? What is the plan for that? What is that going to look like for you moving in? Like, how long do you want to stay there? Do you want to stay in that state? What state you want to live in? I think these are conversations that need to be had, because you just never know where a person's mindset is, and you need to discuss, like, hey, where are you going to live? This is huge. This is very, very huge. And as a woman, like, you got to think about safety. So you want to make sure, wherever he lives, you feel safe. So there are some guys who, I know, like, just like living out here, there are some guys who live in like downtown LA. It's pretty much like a bachelor spot. They live there because it is close to their work, right? But if they're going to get married to someone, a woman's not necessarily going to want to live downtown LA. It's not the safest place. It's not the most comfortable place for a woman to live. So if he's living there and he's like, hey, I thought we could just stay here. And you're like, actually, I don't feel safe. I don't want to stay here. You need to have that kind of conversation. If he's living in a more bachelor friendly place and you want to live in a more female friendly, or maybe more, family friendly place, then you guys need to discuss that, and you need to come up with a plan on how you're going to get that. So I think it's very important that you do that, especially as a woman, because most of the time it's about our safety, it's about our comfortability, and men will just be like, okay, like, that's fine. Like, he's not going to, especially if he loves and cares about you and is going to be your husband, he's not trying to make you feel uncomfortable or unsafe. And I think, if you lead with that and then you show him, like, okay, this is where I want to live, this is a much better neighborhood, I'm pretty sure he's going to agree with that, and you're going to be able to, move and live where you want to live. So I think it's a huge conversation to have. I don't think that you need to compromise on your safety. And I only say safety because I know some of these places that are in the city, it may be cool to live there when you're single and stuff like that, but when you're married and you really don't want that. Some people live in like high rises, and if you're like, okay, I don't want to live in a high rise, like, I want a house, or I want a townhouse, or I want this, you need to talk about that. You need to say what it is that you want, so you guys can, decide where it's best for you to live. Another huge thing that needs to a conversation that needs to be had regardless, this conversation was probably most likely had during the courtship, but I think it's very important that you guys discuss if you want to have children or if you do not want to have children. This is so, so important. And I know that, it's sometimes hard because you find someone and you really like them, and then the one little thing is like the children thing, and it's like, oh, can I get over that? Can I not? And I'm telling you, if you want children and your partner does not want children, you have to let go of this relationship. You just cannot. You cannot bend on that. That is a non-negotiable in my book, because reproducing is such a huge part of our existence here on earth. For all species, like, we reproduce. And if you do not want that experience, there is nothing that anybody can say to you that is going to make you want that experience. And I think it's important that if a person tells you they do not want that experience, that you respect them and you respect yourself to say, well, then I do, and I need to move on. And that goes both ways. If the guy wants children and you do not want children, or you've already had children, you don't want any more children, then you need to move on. Regardless of how much it hurts, you need to move on. This is such a non-negotiable, and so many relationships break down because of this. And then they think that love is enough to make it through. But something like wanting children is a deep desire inside of you. This is something that is inside of you that you really can't shake. If you want children and you want to be a mother, that's going to be in you. You're going to want it. And it's the same thing with him. If he wants children, if he, really wants this and you do not, that's a desire that's not going to go away. He wants to be a father, right? So that is probably a tough decision, but you have to make it, just to save yourself time and money in the long run, honestly, because you may think it'll, you guys can withstand it and maybe you'll get a pet. But when people want children, they want children. They don't want pets, right? I know with myself, me and my husband were on the same page of that with kids. We want kids, and it's just like, that's something that was important for us. And I don't really see a lot of relationships lasting that one person wants it and the other person doesn't. It really doesn't happen that way. So if that is your situation and you guys made it all the way to be getting engaged, either one person changed their mind, and I would say I wouldn't even suggest that. I would just say, maybe the relationship can't really get to where you want it to go, or unless you're willing to go in knowing that one person is fundamentally going to be unhappy and unfulfilled in that way. So yeah, I wouldn't even attempt that, but I just want to put it out there for you ladies. If you are dealing with that, this is a conversation that needs to be had, and unfortunately it may be the demise of your relationship. So I'm sorry, but it just has to be that way. You have to respect yourself, and you have to respect, him. So yeah. Another thing that is important to discuss before you walk down that aisle is work. You need to talk about what your work situation is going to be like. What do you want it to be like? What is your desire for this? If your desire is to be a housewife or a stay-at-home mom, this needs to be clear before you get married, because at the end of the day, you need to set it up so he knows exactly the kind of woman that you are, and what kind of wife you're going to be to him. So if you currently work a 9 to 5 and you're like, hey, I actually don't want to work when I get married, that is not something that fulfills me, that is not something that I want to continue to do, are you able to support us, for the rest of our lives? Are you able to support us? Are you able to be a full provider for me? And if he says like, no, I can't do that, then you guys need to either discuss a plan away so he can do it, or you need to like really figure something out. But in actuality, I think most men can, especially if you're dating the men that I suggest you to date. Most of you are dealing with men that would have no problem providing for you. They expect it. They expect you to not be like, the workhorse of the relationship. They're not necessarily looking for how much money you bring to the relationship. If anything, being married is going to elevate their pockets and they're going to make even more money. So, and that is actually something statistically true, that most of the time married men make more money. So, that's just putting that out there. And if that is something that you truly want, that is something that you need to discuss. For me, in my situation, you guys know that I'm a housewife. I do not work a normal job, a 9 to 5. I do have a business that I had prior to meeting him, and I still have this business. Actually, once we got together, my husband basically became my only client in my business. So my business, well, his business is my client through my business. And so whatever he needs, my services, he just reaches out to me and I'm able to provide the service. And so that's, something that is kind of like on the side, and it's not necessarily like something that I have to clock into. Like before him, I was out there like meeting with clients, always like looking for new clients and like trying to put myself out there and kind of market myself a lot more. And now I don't have to do that. It just is through my husband, and like when he needs my services, he'll just let me know, and then it's pretty simple now. And I also do this YouTube. I also have my relationship and dating coaching, and that is something that is more of a passion project and something that I really enjoy doing, and something that I get to do and help you ladies in your dating journey and your relationships journey to, wherever it is that you want, whether it's marriage, a relationship, long term, whatever it is that you may want for yourself. I'm just happy to be along on the ride in your journey. So that is something that I do as a passion project. And as you ladies know, I pretty much have so many hobbies. I dance, I do yoga, I play golf, I hang out with my family, I read a lot, I travel a lot. So these are things that I get to do with my life because there isn't really any pressure from my husband for me to provide, for me to, you know, be a breadwinner or any of that. And that is what I wanted. That is what I desired. And my husband was totally fine with it, right? He actually tells me like he rather that I'm a housewife and that I don't go work for anybody else, because he enjoys having me, you know, be available, that he can be like, hey, you want to go to lunch today? Hey, you want to come by my office? Hey, you want to do this? Hey, we're going on vacation. Hey, we're doing this. You know, like I'm pretty much open to whatever it is that he decides he wants to do, or that I decide that, you know, I want to do, which, you know, we really enjoy that. And he, again, is able to provide that for me where he doesn't need me to work. So it's a win-win on both ends. But if you want that for yourself, that is something you need to talk about. And most of the time, if the man can take care of you, he will. He doesn't have a problem with taking care of you. Some men will tell you, you know, I just don't want you to be sitting home doing nothing, which fine, that's understandable. And I mean, that usually means go get a hobby, which if you're home long enough, you're going to want a hobby, because you are going to be so bored. Like, you ladies know, sometimes I talk about it, how I can literally go the whole day without even saying a word, because there's nobody to talk to. I don't have kids yet, so it's like I'm by myself usually. And then I'll just like go hang out with my mom sometimes. I'll go hang out with my sister. I'll go hang out with my niece. I'll go to a class. I'll go play golf, or I'll just go to my husband's office and say, hey, let's go to lunch. You know, I just try to entertain myself. I'll talk to you ladies. I'll have a client. You know, I'll do things, but there are some times where I'm just like, you know, at home and I'm not talking because there's nobody to talk to. And sometimes I like that. I like that I have that freedom. I'm very grateful for that. And if that is an experience that you want to have as a woman, I think it's something that you should be clear about from the beginning. And your future husband should know that about you. And you guys need to have that open and clear communication about that. Another big thing to consider, and I think this is just important all the way around, is prenups, postnups, and estate planning. Now, this is important, especially if you, the woman, have children, have some assets and stuff like that, and you want to protect your children in the long run, just in case. I would suggest, you know, getting a prenup for that, to protect your children. If you feel like you have more money than this guy, maybe you need to do that. The other way around, if he's asking you for a prenup because he doesn't trust you or anything like that, that is like a conversation you guys need to have. I don't have a prenup. Me and my husband decided that we weren't going to get one, and my husband's an attorney, and people may think that's weird. Like, how did an attorney not want to have a prenup? That's our own relationship. It's our personal decision that it just wasn't for us. We do have an estate plan. I think this is important. Once you get married, please, if there's anything that you do on this list, is that you get an estate plan together. If you own a home, you and your husband own a home, or he owns it on himself, if he owns it on himself, his name is the only name on the deed, you need to get an estate plan. You need to put a trust in order and put the house inside of the trust, and then you two be the trustors and the trustee of that trust. This is going to protect you in the long run, especially, you know, we don't know when it is that we're going to pass, and that's just inevitable in life. So you need to make sure when that time comes that you are protected, and that you're not spending all the money that you have in probate court. Because I mean, I live in California, and if you do not have a trust, they will take all the money they can in probate. So make sure that, you know, you guys have those things in place. It's very important for, you know, last wishes. It's important for you to have your advanced healthcare directives and your power of attorney. This is not attorney advice. Obviously, I'm not an attorney, but I'm just telling you, this will save you so much in the long run. And it's just good for you guys to have a plan. It's just a part of adulting. It's a part of being responsible, especially if you have children. I mean, even if you're single and you don't even have anybody, but you have things, you own things, even if you don't even own anything, right? That is also true, because you still should have a healthcare directive in order. You still should have a power of attorney in order. You should have a will in order. But if you own things and you own a house, then you should have a trust. You should put your house inside of the trust, because you don't want to go through the probate process, especially while you're grieving or while your family is grieving. So just making that a whole lot easier. And it's just a good thing to have. Most of the time, these guys, you know, if they're successful, they're gonna have one. But if they don't have one, you should bring it up. And I think he will thank you for it. I think he will, you know, really appreciate that you're responsible in that way, that you guys do get that stuff in order. Me and my husband, like, he already had one, but like with me, it was like after we got married, he was like, all right, let's get all our stuff in order. This is how we're gonna do this, you know. And I was just like, okay, all right. And you know, it's uncomfortable to have these tough conversations about, you know, this you know, the inevitable, but it's important that you do, you know, discuss that. I think that's even more important than a prenup or anything, is because when you pass, you do leave your family with picking up the pieces, and you just want to make that as smooth as possible. And I think it's important for you guys to discuss, you know, what it is that you want when that time comes. And it's just good to protect your assets in that way, and then protect, you know, your money, really, your home, and just not having the state claw back all of the money that they can because you did not prepare. So please prepare. It doesn't matter how much your net worth is, you should still have these things in order. Another huge thing to talk about before you say I do is your traditions, the special events that you have, the rituals that you have. This is very important, and people don't even realize that that's sometimes a huge focal point in arguments is, hey, you know, we have to go to my family's for this holiday, or no, but my family's for this holiday, no, but we have to show up for this, and we have to do this special ritual, and this is our family tradition, and we have to do that. If that is you, which it is for a lot of people, that you have traditions and you have things that you set up as a family and that you've been doing for years and years, you need to discuss these things. These are things that he should know, you should know. So then you can actually, you know, come together and decide as a family what is important, what are your rituals, what are your new traditions that you're going to have together. If this is not important for you, if this is really important for you, these are discussions that need to be had. Again, this may have already happened during the courting process, but if it has not, you should speak about it. Like, a lot of the time, you know, women, we take more holidays seriously than men do. Let's be real. Some men don't even celebrate their birthday, right? They could care less. But for women, that is important for us. So it's important that you let him know, like, hey, my family has a tradition. We're always going to have Thanksgiving together. And he could be like, hey, but that's my family's tradition. I always do that. And it's like, hey, how are we going to do this? Are we going to go to their house first? Are we going to go there? Are we going to start our own tradition? Like, if it's like, hey, we don't like any of this, we're both not into this, okay, then every Christmas we travel. You need to have these discussions, because you don't want it to be so when you guys are faced with your other family involved that you're not on the same page about it. Because at the end of the day, once you get married, you become a team. That is your partner. It's your team now. So you have to act like that, and you have to have each other's back. You have to be on the same page, because your family that you have now, your side, his side, once you're married, they become your extended family, and he and you, and if you guys have children, that is your immediate family. So that is whose side you are on, and you need to decide as a family where you're going to go, where you're not going to go, what are you going to celebrate, what are you not going to celebrate. And that is an important discussion to have. And I know this is something that, you know, may seem small, but there are some people that have like traditions and rituals, whether they be religious, whether they be, you know, just something that the family always does. That could be really, really important. And if you don't have those discussions, it will be a huge argument. Trust me. So please just be open, letting everybody know, like, hey, this is an important time of the year for us, and just kind of letting that be clear. If you guys been dating for a while, you probably already kind of picked up on this, but if you had a shorter courtship and were engaged much sooner, then it is something that you're going to get to know. Like with me and my husband, we were engaged under a year, so we were getting to know each other. And even now, 2 years in marriage, and we're like still getting to know each other. And it's fun, right? Because you're like, wow, this is a never ending thing. It's just like you keep on discovering discovering more and more about each other as you grow and grow in the relationship. So I just want to put that out there for you ladies. Like, you know, these things, they may seem small, but they can turn into something big. So just be aware of that. So another thing to talk about is your lifestyle. What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? Are you guys a traveling couple? Do you love traveling? I know with me and my husband, we traveled so much. We traveled since the moment we met each other. We've known each other. We've dated for, we're in the third, close to, in August it'll be 4 years, and we've been married for 2 years. So we've been traveling since the day we met. Honestly, I mean, I think he took me on vacation like 2 weeks after we met. So we've been traveling. And right now in our lives, we're like, this year we are not traveling because we had such an extensive travel year last year. And from the beginning of our relationship, we knew we wanted to travel a lot before we had children. So we just continue to travel. That's just something that we connected on, right? But I know there are so many other people that traveling is not something that they like. They don't enjoy it. They don't want to do it. And this is something that, you know, is not a deal breaker, but it's definitely a conversation to be had. Like, how many travel days are we going to do? Are we going to travel once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year? Are we not going to travel every year? Maybe we travel every other year. What does that look like? And then you got to talk about lifestyle, like, not only where you want to live, how do you want to live? What is, you know, the budget for that kind of lifestyle? What do you like to do? Do you like to eat out a lot? What are we going to do? Again, these are things that may have already come up, but you do need to talk about the lifestyle that you want, the neighborhoods, the school districts, all of this stuff that is just living life. You need to talk about. You need to know, like, how do you want to live life? And that's the thing. So many people don't have that simple conversation of like, how do you want to, like, what is your lifestyle and what is your dream lifestyle? What lifestyle do you want to have in 5 to 10 years? What are your goals towards that? When do you want to retire? Like, when do you want to accomplish your biggest goal? Like, these are things that you need to talk about, and these are the things that you need to express to one another. So one of the final things that I think that you and your future husband should talk about before you say I do is your sexual expectations. This is very important. It's probably one of the most important things after money. Is your sexual expectations. You need to know what your future husband expects sexually. This is just a non-negotiable, and you need to talk about it. You need to talk about his past experiences, your past experiences, if it's something that, you know, you need to discuss about. Not necessarily like how many people, but like what do you like? You know, what are you into? You know, some men are polygamous, and they really, really are, but they don't express it, and then they end up cheating on you, right? And so you need to know, like, hey, are you into that? Some men want threesome, some men want these things, and they've experienced it, and it's like, hey, do you want, is that what you want? If that is something that you don't want, you need to talk about it. You need to say, hey, that's not something that I want. Are you sure you're okay with that? Because that's not going to be okay with me, right? I'm not okay with such and such and such. If I think these conversations need to happen way more than they do happen. I think a lot of the times people are afraid to have these discussions, afraid to talk about what their partner may or may not be into, but that is like the demise to so many marriages. So like, why not have that conversation? If it's you that say, hey, I'm into this and I'm into this, and he's like, oh, I'm not even really into that, then you need to decide, because at the end of the day, you know, sex isn't everything, but it's a part of something. It's huge. And a lot of heartbreak happens, like I said, where people end up cheating, people end up doing things behind their back, where that ends up to even bigger issues, you know, because once you start cheating, then you open yourself up to diseases, and you open up yourself to a whole bunch of things. So I think it's important for all of you ladies to really ask these questions, be clear, you know, of what your future husband may want sexually. And it doesn't have to be like you're judging them of what they say. You can just say, hey, you know, let's have an open conversation. Like, what do you like? What do you don't like? You may think, you know, you may, you know, think, you know, we've done this so many times, but it's like, no, like ask them, like, what's your fantasy? Not in a judging way, in a way. So it's like, hey, I'm interested. I'm intrigued by this. Let me know, like, what fantasies do you have? Not that I'm going to perform them, but I want to know so then I can say, are we sexually compatible? Is this the same route? Because some people may be on one side of the spectrum and the other person could be on a completely other. Because if you are a person who is very adventurous sexually, and then you get with a vanilla person who does not want to stop being vanilla, that's going to be a hard relationship. That's going to be a hard marriage. And there's going to be lies and cheating and all that stuff going on. And that can happen, like, where it's like, hey, you've never experienced this, but you're interested, then that's good. I think a lot of the time people don't even know what they like, and they don't really say that. Like, there are some women, like, I swear to you, there are some women who are into being humiliated, who are actually like, they like that. They like this, like the whole humiliation. They like being disrespected. And it's not even like something is really wrong with them. I think they are literally turned on by it, and then they stay in these toxic relationships, but technically it's not even toxic because they are enjoying it and the partner enjoys it. There are people who like to be submissive, and there are people who are dominant and they like it, and then on the outside looking in, you're like, oh my god, this is a weird dynamic, but in actuality it works for them. So I think it's important to have these conversations with your partner so you guys both know what it is that you want and what it is that you're into, so then you can make the decision for yourself. Again, it could be very uncomfortable. This is a little bit uncomfortable speaking about it publicly for me to say this kind of stuff, but I think it's important for you to have the discussion. And I'm here for you, ladies. So I definitely, you know, need to tell you, right? Because I don't want it to be where you're in a marriage and the guy is cheating on you, or, you know, he's doing these kind of things, and, you know, because you didn't ask, or because, you know, this. It's just good to know. It's good to have it out there. And then that way you can make an educated decision for yourself and know if this is something that you want or you don't want. Now, the final thing, the very final thing that I want to discuss with you, ladies, before you walk down that aisle, before you say I do, is that I want you to make sure that you are getting married to a man in his king energy. This is the most important part. You need a man who is ready to be your husband. You need a man who wants to be your husband. There is no room for potential when it comes to marriage. A lot of the time, women marry for potential, and you end up being highly, highly disappointed because nothing good comes out of just potential. It needs to have will, it needs to have work, it needs to have evidence. So if you are with a guy and he is serious about marriage, he wants to be a husband, he's serious about you, he's doing all the things, he's not looking at other things, other people, he's like, no, I want to be with you, I want to get married to you, this is it, you didn't have to force him into it, this is just what he wants, then you can see this is a man in his king energy. This is a man who's ready, he owns things, he's all the things that I said, he's open to these conversations. He wants to have these conversations. He's probably bringing it up himself. That's a man in his king energy. If you are dealing with a man who's afraid to show you his money, afraid to crack open those books, afraid to have these deeper conversations about what he's into sexually, afraid to have these conversations about, you know, children or whatever it may be, if he's not willing to have these conversations with you, then this man may not be ready for marriage, because marriage is merging your lives together, where you two are actually just like on one team, and you need to be very clear on what is going on over there, and he needs to be clear about what's going on with you and what you want and what he wants. These are real things that need to be spoken about, because if you don't know these things, then you should not be getting married, right? And so if a man is holding these things back from you when you have asked him, then that's not a man in his king energy. That is not a man that you need to be marrying. So just wanted to give you ladies this video because I think it's very important and it is going to be very helpful to you. And, you know, you can always reach out to me for a one-on-one goddess check-in if you just need a little more of a personal touch and you just, you know, need help with your specific situation, because obviously obviously this is general. You can always reach out to me. My information is in the description. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know if you have any other things that you want to add to this list and that you can help other women as well. And also like the video, subscribe to the channel, duh, okay? I always forget to say those things, but yes. Thank you so much for watching the video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.